I am live. I am live. I'm live. Let me get started real quick. There's a lot of people here on this earth that's mourning and have plenty of complaints. And they consistently do this thing here called mourning over the loss, mourning over the the dead, and mourning over their sins. It's a many mornings that go out into the atmosphere all day long. And you don't understand, those mornings go out into the atmosphere, and they drop down, they drop into the ground, and they come back up from that ground, the earth, and they are, they become something. They become something. So you cannot say that this here is such a good thing. It's not the best thing that has ever happened to you. The best thing that has ever happened to you is God being in your life. God being in your life. But again, there are many people who still are mourning, who still are complaining about their day. And all that stuff that they are doing and saying, it falls down to the ground. And what's on that ground, when that wind start going back and forth, it comes up from that grave, from the ground, deeper than the grave, is more and more things from that morning that you are doing, from them complaints that you have. And the Lord said for us to pray, but there again, there are still some who are grieving, who are in sorrow, and who don't even know what sprouts up from that. So I'm going to tell you what I got in my notes for today. And that is that when it comes to mourning, I want you to know that that's a state of deep grief, first and foremost. When you mourning something, that's a state of deep grief and sorrow that comes as, number one, weeping, number two, crying loudly, and number three, wearing garments. Wearing garments, certain garments, represents mourning. You understand? It's people who are doing rituals pertaining to wearing certain garments that represents mourning. Example, like the veil over people's heads. When God speaks of the veil that's covering the woman's head, or mostly the woman's head, when God speaks about the veil that covers the woman's head, he is talking about that woman is still mourning over something, meaning she still in a deep grief and a deep sorrow of something. You understand what I'm saying? And that means that woman is not ready. She's not ready. She needs some time. She needs to find God. She needs to know who she is in Christ Jesus. So again, when you hear about a mourning, okay? When you hear about a mourning, that means that the person that's mourning, she's in a deep grief or sorrow. And a lot of times, the representations of that is a weeping, number one, crying loudly, wearing certain garments represents grief and sorrow, like a veil. If you have a dream about a veil, that means that person is still in deep sorrow. That person is still in deep grief all over that person's body. That means that person is in complete darkness. that person has no light. Okay? That's what that means. When they have a veil over them that represents a deep grief, a deep sorrow that that person is in. Okay? Remember that. Or another example is that what the Lord told me one day. He said, he told me to take my hands. He told me take my hands as he put it on, as he had me to write it down in my notes. He said for me to take my hands off my garment. He told me that. He said to take my hands off my garment because it was up from here. That's what he told me. And this was like a couple of days ago. He said, take my hands off my garment because it was up from here. Meaning that you can take your hands. A garment represents sorrow. A garment represents grief. You can take your hands. When you hear God, you may not even understand when God says that to you. But I'm telling you what that means right now. That means when the God tells you to take your hands off of any fabric on your clothing, if he's telling you to take your hands off of it, or he's telling you something about your garment, that means that you are in a deep grief, a deep sorrow, and he wants you to know that he is here now, and he is here for you, and he gonna take care of things. You don't have to worry about your tomorrow no more. You don't have to ever worry about your tomorrow because now you are my child. Now you are my child. Okay? That's what that meant. And it's only up from here, meaning blessings. So look up, my child. Look up and be exceedingly glad and welcome me. And also another example of mourning, when you are mourning, it would be sackcloth. If you've seen a sackcloth, the sackcloth in the spiritual realm, and this is for spiritual content only, okay? If you see a sackcloth in your dreams or in your vision, or the Lord say something about a sackcloth, that represents mourning and grief as well. That represents mourning, which is grief and sorrow. That represents mourning, which is grief and sorrow. And that is the state of depression that you are in. You are worried about your tomorrow, and you no longer have to worry about the days to come. Be satisfied now. Declare the Lord is now. Get to know who he is now. Pray so that you can get your heart right, because God is here. And every blessing you got to be aware of. Every blessing that he about to bring to you in your life, you got to be there for it. Get out of those things in which I named that sackcloth. Let it go. That veil over your head, let it go. Take your hands off your garment, women. Take your hands off your garment, woman. Let it go. No more worrying about your tomorrows. I know the kids. I know the house. I know your husband. I know. But don't worry. Don't worry. Take your hands off your garment. It's no need to be with grief, a deep grief anymore, a deep sorrow anymore. There's no need to be with these things because guess what? It's only up from here. It's up from here. So look up, my child. Look up. Don't put your head deep to the ground no more. Look up. That's what that means. Okay? So I want you to know that this, when it comes to mourning, I'm going to tell you some more about it. When it comes to mourning, it also represents a removing of adornments. Adornments, I'm sorry. It also represents a removing of adornments, right? A removing of adornments. Mourning is. So that means like decorations. When it comes to mourning, which in turns you are in a state of deep grief and sorrow, that represents all those little dangly things on your face, all those things. I'm not talking about my earring, but I'm talking about those little dangly things that the Indians wear, and all those little things that you put into places that don't belong. All those extra jewelries that you put all in your face, all on your body, all those the cross that you put on your body, representing something. All those things represents a state of mourning, meaning grief, deep grief and sorrow. That's what that represents according to the Bible. That's what this is talking about. So when you see that in the Bible, mourning, that represents everything in your life that you're not looking at. But I'm here and I'm telling you what you be needing to look at. You need to look at what you wearing. Are you wearing a lot of black as your garment? Are you wearing a lot of jewelry all over your face? Are you in a tradition where they do these things? Are you living out life in a tradition where they do these things? But you didn't know that that represents mourning versus then joy versus joy? Do you not know in your life where the darkness lies at and where it's getting an entryway into your life? Yeah. When you are in a state of something and you don't even know that you're in that state, because you could be just doing something because it's a heritage of what your forefathers have done, but you've been doing it for years. Y'all celebrate these different things of decorating your body with something. Tattoos, jewelry, different clothes, real dark clothes all the time. All these things represent mourning, which is still means that you are in a state of deep grief and sorrow. And can't nobody dictate that and just look at you and say, oh, you is mourning. No, I'm saying this is before God. I'm saying this is before God, not nobody else. They can't tell you that because they didn't get that word from God. They got that word from looking at you. That ain't what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the ones who getting the word from God, not themselves, to give to you and then say that they got it from God. That's not what I'm talking about. No, no. So it's a lot of times you could be mourning. Know that you are gradually and steadily, consistently, on a consistent basis, stirring up the dead. Because that's what mourning does. It stirs up the dead from the ground, deep. But a lot of times, you could be mourning over someone who is dead. You could be mourning over your sins. You could be mourning over your mistakes. You can also be mourning over loss of other people's stuff, you know? Like you could be mourning over somebody else's mother, somebody else's dad, your mother. You could be mourning over that and don't even know it. That's when it comes in to say, what's that garment you wearing? That that comes into play when it's pertaining to your garment. Mourning. All right? So watch what it is that you getting off into, and the things that you worship in, the things that is being done for years and centuries, and you still following up behind it, not knowing what that is that you're doing. Even walking barefooted, even walking and being barefooted, that's mourning. Grief, that's a deep grief, a deep state of grief and sorrow. Being going barefoot, that's that's mourning, because you see a lot of homeless people doing that. Yeah, they be outside and they don't wear no shoes. They just be barefooted. That's mourning. They are still mourning, which means that they want to be closer to death than anything. You understand? When you mourning, that means you want to be close to death. You receive your information from death, meaning deeper than the grave. That's hell. What's deeper than the grave? Hell. And you receiving your stuff from it as long as you are walking in this mourning, in your mornings. Okay? So let me tell you what you need to be doing for that. I'm going to tell you what you need to be doing for that. All of these things. And you need to be casting down. You need to start and you need to begin to cast down. In this case, you need to cast down. All right? And casting down, let me tell you what casting down means for you as a child of God, the righteous. Casting down means cast. I'm going to say that word, cast. Because you will have to become a caster of demons. Take your rightful place, righteous. You're going to have to take your rightful place. And you're going to have to be a caster of demons that is further than this earth. Because this earth is not where you started from. You're going to have to go further than this earth. It comes from a whole different realm. So let me take you into you needing to cast some stuff down. But I'm going to take you into that word, cast, and what it means for you. All right. Cast means, as I wrote in my notes, cast means it comes in light. That's number one. Casting anything down, or casting, period. Cast means it comes in light or shadow. Take these notes. Cast means, spiritually speaking, for spiritual content, cast means it comes in light or shadow. Cast means it comes in light or shadow. And that light or shadow is to be brought on the surface. When you're casting, that light and that shadow is to be brought to the surface. It's going to bring it to the surface, whether or not it's a shadow or whether or not it's the light. It's going to be brought to the surface when you are in that caster of demons mode, when you're casting something. Okay, when you casting something. Also, when you're casting, you're making the image or that object of a thing into a shape. You making it to a shape before you, and you want it to be. You want it to be, because this is the only way you can cast it. Okay? So you want it to be, it's like molding, it's like molding it. Taking and molding something. When you have that ability to mold something, let me tell you what that represents. That represents your dominion on this earth. It represents that word dominion. And that's what you have. You have dominion on this earth. So why are you mourning the things in which on it? This is why you have to begin to cast those things into another form of image. And that image needs to be in Christ Jesus. But let me take you further about this casting and molding it into what you need to mold it into, which is place you in that word, having dominion over it. All right? Having dominion over it. So casting goes into dominion. Casting goes into dominion. Having dominion over something, this is how you have the ability to be a caster of what is an illusion over this earth. You can cast those illusions down. Them illusions down. You can cast them down. The illusions over your body. The illusions over your mind. And the illusions over your inner parts. Your innermost parts. Of your organs. AKA still is the body. Your organs, they carry shadows. So you can cast the things down in which are in your organs, clouding up in a shadow over your organs. Your organs carry shadows, so you can cast that down too. And cast it off as well. Or draw it out. These are things that you can do. You will be casting it. You'll be doing all these. You will be casting it for a reason. You'll be casting these things. Even the idols and these former images in which was held for centuries before you, which is causing most majority of your mournings and your complaints all the time. It's these things that summon things from the earth, deeper than the grave, which is hell. You would be casting it to the wind. You'll be casting it to the wind to be taken up by God's judgment. Instead of you being thrown to the wind and tossed to and fro. Bible. You want that to be cast in the wind. To be taken up by God's judgment. Instead of you being tossed. You've been thrown to the wind, tossed to and fro. Bible. You don't want you to be that one. You want it, that image, those illusions in which is here that we cannot see, that come way from a deep place. a whole nother realm in which we don't know about. You're forcibly throwing what needs to be thrown out. Out, meaning expelled. You throwing it out because you don't no longer want it. You will be, let me tell you what you are from this day forth, being that you are on the face of this earth, and there are many people mourning, many people tears going to the ground, many complaints, many. And they don't even know that they doing it. Even they worshiping these other gods is sending those things into the ground. And then it comes back up. And we think that's from God. But that in return is from a whole different realm. From the deeper than the grave. No, it ain't from God. It's from grave deep hell. But as you know, you will be consistently to be a caster of demons on the face of this earth because of these things that people get off into and that people worship more than God. And as a child of God, you will be a caster of demons. You will be a caster of things you cannot see that are not from this earth, but from other levels of heaven. You understand? That's the hell. And again, there was an earthly womb here before. There was and still here. There was an earthly womb you went through that caused your illusions to take place. But God's spirit upon you cast it out. Let me get it out. But God's spirit upon you cast it out. Just like Adam and Eve. They went through a womb, an earthly womb, from Eden to the earth. And God said it's better for it to be coming from the mother's womb than from this earth. So this is why it's better to birth things from the mother than from the earth. Do you get what I'm saying? Do you get what I am saying? So birthing things come from earth. Birthing things, let me say that again. Birthing things from earth is deep down. Who knows how far off? Who knows how far of stuff is buried deep down? Even scientists, let me tell you this. Even scientists keep finding new stuff because of every time that wind blows. Every time that wind blows the dust away, that dust accumulates something from it underneath, right? There's never no stopping the wind. It's going to blow something else, and then the scientist is going to find something else knee deep in that ground. So do know that all of this is pertaining to how when you are mourning, when you are complaining, and you are making this has noise. This carries noise with it. That type of stuff carries noise to the ground. And from this here mourning, you will be casting, that's that word, you will be casting iniquity. You'll be casting iniquity. You could be casting iniquity on people or casting iniquity on yourself. And in this iniquity, you will have this type of wrath that builds up. And in this wrath, you will hate everybody. Because this is not coming from you. This is coming from another dimension, another world, another place that is further than this earth. So all of that wrath that you done built up ain't coming from you, but it is you, which means now you gonna have to be a caster of demons. Because when it's all said and done, responsibility is going to be with you. Responsibility is going to be with you. And guess what? In this mourning state, you will hear these voices. You will hear voices because this is what you're worshiping. Knee deep throughout this mourning and these complaints that you have. You will hear these voices from the enemy because of the oppression of the wicked. That's why you hear these voices all the time, because you don't never know what's going on with you. But if you let go of that garment and cast it down, that you can't see, sometimes you can't see what it is that's there. That's that garment stuff, that garment there. You gonna see, but God will show you. If only you would pray, take heed, and wait on the Lord. Meaning, get into that book of understanding. Meaning, wait and listen. Take heed to the Spirit, the Holy Ghost, and He will plant your ways. He will plant your way. But as long as you keep mourning, meaning making this noise, and the earth hears your mourning, that's what hears it. The earth, deeper than the grave, which is hell. They hear your mourning. As long as you keep mourning, meaning in a deep grief or sorrow, weeping, crying loudly, wearing these certain garments with these veils over your head, and having your hands on your garment. As long as you keep your hand on your garment and you won't take it and rip it up, tear it up from the bottom, tear it up from the bottom to the top, rip that garment up. As long as you keep mourning, you're going to keep hearing these ugly, wicked sounds of voices in your head. As long as you keep worrying about your tomorrow, long as you keep on mourning, you're going to keep hearing the voices that are going to be loud, of the voices of the enemy deep in hell. And those things, those very voices, are going to oppress you. And these will be oppression from the wicked. It's time to cast them down. That's why I say you're going to be then needing to learn how to cast these things down. Draw them out and then allow God to cast them off with the wind and not you. That's all I got to say for today. I think this might be my last video. But stay blessed. Stay tuned for more. It's time to cast those demons down. You are a caster of spirits now that you are a child of God. You are now a caster of spirits. Stop allowing the wicked to manifest themselves in your life and cast them down. Shrink them suckers down to the size they need to be, like little roaches. Shrink them down to little roaches and just give them to God. Because you know roaches eat dust. They can live off of dust. Sure can. But just when that wind come, they gone. Stay blessed. Stay tuned for more. Bye for now. Salute to you, soldiers.